Well, it seems that way, because wherever I am, my body is. I cannot, it seems, exist without my body, and then from there, it's only a small step to assume that I am my body. The trouble with this is that I seem to be the same. I existed yesterday and the day before yesterday, and I existed 10 years ago, and so on. Whereas my body is constantly changing. You could cut off a limb of my body, or I could have an accident losing a limb. So my body has radically changed, is no longer identical to my earlier body, but I would still be identical to my earlier I, would still be the same person. So the body is not identical, because if two things have different properties, one has an arm, it has two arms, and the other has only one, they cannot be the same thing. It's impossible that two things are identical if they have different properties. If two things have different properties, they are not the same. So my body constantly changes, but I seem to be, over time and through time, always the same person. In an extreme case, I could even imagine that I would lose most of my body and it's being replaced by another body, and still would be the same person. Let's take the science fiction example, but it might not be in the future, that we would transplant an entire human skull, head. So my head, including its brain, would be transplanted to another body. Let's assume that a body was severely damaged in an accident, but the skull and the head is still healthy, and the brain is healthy, and then we transplant this healthy skull and brain to a dead body from a healthy person that has recently deceased because of a head injury. So this new person would then have a new young body, but the same brain and the same memories. And it seems that in that case, they're still the same person, but the person has received, as a transplant, a complete new body from the neck on, downward. If that's the case, then I'm certainly not identical with the body I'm having now. So the problem that I'm identical to my body is really related to that my body can change dramatically while I'm at the same time stay the same. We might then think that it's really my mental properties that guarantee who I am. But that's also not so easy, because my mental properties are constantly changing. I'm thinking now about different things than I thought 10 minutes ago or 10 years ago. Even my character changes to a certain extent. So what is there in terms of my mental attributes that really stays the same? Well, some philosophers have suggested it's memory. So I'm connected to my earlier states because I remember them. And I remember today what I did yesterday, and yesterday I remembered what I did the day before yesterday, and so on. There's a continuity of memory, which is conceived like a chain that keeps together the entire person. But what I am then as a person is something that is stretched out in space and time, like this worm, this chain of mental states that are connected by the relation of I remember that. I remember the earlier states. So you could not possibly meet me as a person entirely now because you only meet a certain time slice of me, of 4 or 5 minutes listening to me. But I'm not here fully as a person, but only certain mental states which are connected to earlier ones by memory are present, which seems to be counterintuitive. And then also the memory might get, the chain of memory might get broken. So some people have not a blackout of 1 or 2 hours after heavy drinking, but some people have blackouts where they have no memories of periods of weeks or months or even years. In that case, we would have one person before the blackout and one person after the loss of memory. That seems to be counterintuitive too. So that's why some philosophers have suggested that empirical criteria like psychological, memory, or physical are not enough to pinpoint what makes me the person who I am. My identity is something that cannot be empirically observed by looking at my body or my memories or my mental states. And what's behind this is the old philosophical idea of a substance. A substance is something that has an inherent unity which cannot be reduced to something the substance is made of. For example, me as a person, as a substance, you cannot understand who I am or what it means to be me by dissecting me and looking at all the parts I'm being made of. A substance is a radical unity that cannot be explained by other lesser or lower entities. So the reason why I have something like personal identity is then dependent on me being a substance. One could, for example, say that every animal is a substance in that sense, because I'm one particular case, one particular realization of Homo sapiens. From birth to death, I'm the same exemplar of Homo sapiens. So the idea of substance introduces a unity that overcomes the problems of change in terms of physical and mental properties. Me as an exemplar of Homo sapiens, this one particular animal that was born 63 years ago and hopefully will live for quite a few more years, is one entity. So then what makes me me is not so much that that I'm a person or personal identity. What makes me me is that I am a specific animal, a Homo sapiens, a human being. And being a person is a property of human beings. There might be other persons who are not human beings. But what grants them their identity is being one particular instantiation of a natural kind, like Homo sapiens.